Hello, and welcome to episode 444 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always, joined by Evan Silva, and week 2 is behind us. It was a wild week 2, especially at the end of those 1 o'clock games. Evan, How was your week 2? How's it going?
Yeah, it was good. Definitely from a sports betting standpoint, got that the Jags felt like that was just an easy bet. They were giving that away. And then the over on Baltimore, Miami, I mean, that game went nuts in the second half. A lot of subscribers I saw. I mean, it was screenshot city this weekend. And big shout out to the subs. Big shout out to Leone for winning the Thunderdome.
Again, yep.
Yeah, I mean, what a stud. So,
yeah, the Miami stuff is so interesting. We'll talk about that when we get to the AFC team by team. On this show, we're going to be going team by team through the NFC, talking about everything we saw and what it means. Before we get into it, reminder, DFS season is very much upon us. This is when it really matters to have the most reliable data and analysis. I've been saying all summer, but no one takes projecting how football players perform on Sundays more seriously than us. We have the ownership projections, Silva's matchups, showdown analysis, really everything that we think you need to win. Weekly and monthly options are available now on the site. Also, this program is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Each week you can do best ball. It's not just a season-long thing. Each week you can do a best ball draft. You can use our projections to make your rankings, and I think that is a really good way to go about it, and really fun if you like doing snake drafts, best ball style snake drafts. For each week, use promo code ETR when you sign up. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Really is a lot of fun. Again, promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. All right, Evan. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals here. And I know that, we've poo-pooed Zach Ertz plenty. Zach Ertz's role right now, and I'm not saying it's going to sustain, his role right now, given the state of the tight end position, is like borderline top 5. I mean, with DeAndre Hopkins out, with Rondale Moore out, with Trey McBride not even playing, Zach Ertz 48 routes on 52 Kyler dropbacks. Zach Ertz slaughter wide 68% of the time. 18% target share. I mean, dude can't do anything after the catch. He's not explosive. But at the tight end position, getting 18% of the targets, running 48 routes on 52 dropbacks, that's like enough to get there. So I just want to point that out on Zach Ertz. The other big thing we have to talk about is James Conner, who left this game with an ankle injury. Doesn't sound overly serious, but I think people are on the wire deciding between Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams, the mentor. So, Evan, go ahead on any James Conner injury followed, anything else you saw with Arizona.
Well, he's supposed to be day-to-day, but we also know James Conner's history, and that's that he's not necessarily – I mean, he'll play through injury, but, he'll have a tendency to aggravate those injuries. He has an extensive injury history. Even last year in his best season as a pro, I think, when he scored 18 touchdowns, toward the end, he stayed healthy until like about week 14, and then toward the end, he kind of fell off the cliff from a durability standpoint. I would prefer Darrell Williams over Eno Benjamin, I think, based on what happened this past week. But I'm not sure about that. I think it would probably be a 1-2 punch, but I also think that James Conner's probably going to gut it out.
Yeah, James Conner's injury does not sound serious, so I wouldn't be going nuts on waiver wires for this after James Conner left. And keep in mind, they were down 20-0 when James Conner left. So to me, that was a clear Eno Benjamin game script. But Darrell still outtouched him, was 11-10 after James Conner left. I do think Eno Benjamin has a lot more juice, is better in the pass game. I think he's like more of the archetype of the running back that I want on my roster. So I would go with him over Darrell Williams. But on either of them, I'm not like falling all over myself to do. Other thing that I would say about this, I mean, yeah, they come back and won. They got outplayed badly in this game. I mean, Cliff is just such a donkey. And I mean, he's lucky he has Kyler.
Giving everybody high fives like he had anything to do with what happened. I mean, it's just like Nate Tice and the son of Mike Tice, the former NFL coach, and Robert Mays have a great podcast that everyone should really listen to if you want to just get into the X's and O's of football. And they just call it like just let Kyler go out there and do it offense, you know, because anything that Cliff is scheming, like that stuff doesn't work.
Yeah,
that stuff doesn't work. And now we see Christian Kirk balling out in Jacksonville as a slot receiver. We knew this, that he should be playing in the slot, and they would use him as like a perimeter deep threat. It's just the player utilization, the scheming. Yeah, absolutely. Cliff Kingsbury, fake sharp.
Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. So Cordero Patterson came back to earth as expected. And so remember what happened in week 1 when Damian Williams went out. They didn't really have a backup they were comfortable with. In this game, they got Tyler Algier active. CPAP plays 36 snaps. Algier 19. Avery Williams got 15. Caleb Huntley got 3. Falcons almost came back and won this game. One of the big things that sticks out to me was this Drake London stuff. I mean, Drake London is an alpha out there, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, Drake London looks like a beast. 32% target share in his first 2 NFL games. Turned that into 13 catches, 160 yards, and a touchdown. Be on the lookout for some stuff from Harmon that we're working on with him on Drake London. But Evan, we're kind of burying the lead here. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants your take. What to do? What's wrong with Kyle Pitts? Why hasn't Kyle Pitts performed? Are you holding Kyle Pitts? Are you trying to sell low on Kyle Pitts? What's your outlook the rest of the way on Kyle Pitts?
I'd be trying to buy low. I mean, I understand that, he scored 1 touchdown last year. And from that standpoint, he was a disappointment. He went over 1,000 yards as a rookie tight end.
At 20 years old.
At age 20, he won the Mackey. Okay. I think it's going to happen for him. He's playing almost 90% of the snaps. They are using him around the formation. And I know it just hasn't happened yet, and that's frustrating. But I think that he's a player that you buy on. I saw Matt Waldman suggest that, and that it's going to be, not. It's like they're not going to have big weeks together. Drake London and Kyle Pitts are not going to have big weeks together. It's going to be one guy or the other. And in the next coming week, it could definitely be Kyle Pitts. Also, Marcus Mariota just isn't very good. So him being able to feed 2 big-time pass catchers, it's probably just not going to happen. They also want to run the ball in Atlanta. But I would be willing to buy Kyle Pitts. I guarantee you the guy who has him right now is super, super frustrated. Oh. He's a talent to bet on. I know it's been frustrating.
Man, people are sending me messages, should I be dropping Kyle Pitts? Like, not only do I think that people are in full-blown panic and you can get him cheaply, I mean, people are like already giving up. There's a lot, I think, some overblown stuff. Kyle Pitts is not pass blocking that much. He's pass blocking a little bit more than he did last year, but not that much. He's run 57 routes on 69 Marcus Mariota dropbacks last year. He's only seen 6 targets in 2 games for a 10% share. Drake London's at 32%. Obviously, I think that's going to come back together and kind of meet in the middle somewhere. I think maybe there's an argument that Marcus Mariota locks on to one guy, and that one guy he's locking on to is Drake London. And I think that's maybe a valid concern. But man, I mean, if they want to win games, they need to get Kyle Pitts involved more. I'm certainly shook by this start. There's no doubt about that, but I would not be selling him low. And I don't hate buying low, depending on how low it is. I certainly don't hate it. He's still one of the few tight ends that can actually make a difference for you each week. So
Daigle had a good tweet because Arthur Smith said, or he was asked, well, why aren't you trying to scheme the ball to Kyle Pitts? And he said, well, we're trying to win games.
Yeah.
And then Daigle said, yeah, you're 0-2.
Yeah.
So.
And they played well. I mean, they've played well, actually. They could have beat the Saints, but I agree. Yeah. Like, if you're going to have
an above expectation, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, they had a chance to win both their games.
Still, they are 0-2, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to win games, get the ball to Kyle Pitts. I just want to see him schemed versus linebackers and safeties. And, I think there's some concern here. I'm not just saying, oh, don't worry about it all. I think there's some concern. Yeah. But if we were drafting right now, and by the way, our rest of season 150 will be out tomorrow for DraftKit Pro and in-season subscribers, I would still take Kyle Pitts, in the 4th or 5th round and feel okay about it.
Yeah, I'd still have him as a top 5 tight end.
Go to Carolina. Speaking of guys who people are angry about, I just think Christian McCaffrey's been fine. Christian McCaffrey's playing 86% of the snaps. He's seen 100% of Carolina's running back targets. He had a touchdown in week 1. He got the 100-yard bonus in week 2. But I get the concern is just that with Baker, the offense is broken. I mean, they've only run 104 plays through 2 weeks. The league average is around 63 plays per game. So, yeah, I mean, they're not playing well. They're not playing efficiently. Baker is not looking to McCaffrey as much in the pass game as other quarterbacks did. But still, I mean, Christian McCaffrey's usage is out of this world. Even knowing what I know now, I would for sure still have him as a top 3 pick. What do you think about Christian McCaffrey so far and anything else with Carolina?
I think he's balling. I mean, I think he looks really good out there. There are these 3 teams in particular that have they're not running any plays. We can anticipate that from Seattle because they by far ran the fewest plays in the NFL last year. Indianapolis is not running any plays, and Carolina is not running any plays. I think that Carolina and Indianapolis are going to kind of get it together. But I mean, it's led to a level of frustration so far. DJ Moore, we got the touchdown from him last week, which is nice, but his usage has not measured up to what we had hoped.
Yeah, I think DJ Moore is still going to be fine. I'm not ready to panic on him just yet. But yeah, you got to run more plays, man. Period. Chicago. I mean, okay, maybe you give them a pass week 1 in the monsoon, whatever. They were extremely run heavy. I mean, they're not even trying to throw the football. Justin Fields has dropped back now 28 times in 2 games. They're dead last in PR in pass rate over expectation. San Francisco is right there with them, but they're like so far behind everyone else. I mean, Darnell Mooney has seen 5 targets all year. It's an 18% share. Like 18% share is reasonable. 5 targets all year. He has 2 catches for 4 yards, does Darnell Mooney. They just have no interest in throwing the football whatsoever. It's going to be really hard to use or start anyone here if this is going to be their attitude. What have you seen from the Bears?
Yeah, and Cole Kmet through 2 games has a goose egg. I mean, that's a tight end that you can drop. You can feel fine dropping Cole Kmet. He even I didn't see Ryan Griffin's usage numbers here in the second game, but I know that in the first game Ryan Griffin played like almost as much as Cole Kmet. And they're using a lot of two tight end sets because they want to run the ball. They don't trust Justin Fields to throw the ball. And they are also aware that they're pass catcher deficient. To be kind, they're starting a fifth-round rookie left tackle out of Southern Utah. I did think that Justin Fields got in on that keeper. But if the referees can't see the ball on replay, and you couldn't see the ball just because of the scrum, they're not going to reverse that one. But it did look to me like he got in. That would have given him a little bit more rushing juice. But right now, I mean, I don't think he's nowhere near. He's not even a streamer consideration right now. 28 pass attempts. The Jets have thrown the ball like 120 times. The Jets.
Oh, the Bears, man. What a mess. Let's go to Dallas. I mean, one of the most disappointing things for me through 2 games is Tony Pollard's usage. Only 14 slaughter wide snaps, but we saw him get in the game a bunch more here with his Cooper Rush game. Cooper Rush played fine, just like he played fine in that Vikings game that he started last year. We saw Noah Brown go off. I think maybe that was a bit correlated with the Dalton Schultz stuff late, but maybe not. Dalton Schultz is banged up. We'll see on his status. I think that's not a bad thing for CeeDee Lamb and Noah Brown, that if Dalton Schultz ends up missing time, just more of that over the middle stuff will be open for them. What do you see out of Dallas' game against the Bengals and anything on the Dalton Schultz injury?
Yeah, it sounds to me like Dalton Schultz has a PCL, which it can be very tricky. I mean, as we've seen with Brashad Perryman in the past, Ezekiel Elliott last year, it's technically, I think, something that he can maybe gut out, but I don't know. And he also didn't show any kind of a connection last year when Cooper Rush played. So Dalton Schultz is already looking like it's looking a little rough for Dalton Schultz right now, I think. Cooper Rush is just good enough of a backup, maybe like Chase Daniel, if you want to make a comparison, to be able to get the ball functionally to the receivers that we want to play in fantasy. And therefore, CeeDee Lamb is, he's not the wide receiver 1 we'd hope for with Dak Prescott, but he is a wide receiver 3 play. And I think we can kind of hang our hat on that. I mean, he's just good enough.
Let's go to Detroit. DeAndre Swift was clearly limited by the ankle. Only played on 31 out of 61 snaps. Still had 16.7 DraftKings points. Of course, the concern is they continue to use Jamal Williams in this goal line back role. Jamal Williams now has 4 carries from inside the 5-yard line this season. DeAndre Swift has 0, but still, I mean, this guy is so explosive. The way he plays is so good. Jared Goff is checking down a lot. I mean, he's out there for every pass down. I still am really high on DeAndre Swift. I hope that he's off the injury report this week. The ankle is ready to rock. The other thing, I mean, one of the most fun things, one of the best things of the season, and we've obviously gotten a ton wrong. One of the best things that we've gotten right is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, what a stud this dude is. And I don't think it's going to slow down, man. I mean, it'll slow down some, but it's not going to slow down a lot because Detroit's offense is so good. Their defense is so bad. Their offensive line is so good. And Jared Goff, Amon-Ra have this connection, and it's where Goff likes to throw the football. So, I would not be like selling high or anything like that on Amon-Ra. I think this is somewhat sustainable. What do you see out of the Lions win, our Lions win over the Washington football team?
Yeah, I think it was Josh Norris who said it. Like, we were talking about who could be this year's Cooper Kupp. And I think we already have our answer. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that the way that they were able to score and move the ball consistently in this game, despite cluster injuries on the offensive line, Frank Ragnow was out, Jonah Jackson was out, Vaitai was out. That's your right guard, left guard, and center. That's your entire interior offensive line, and they were still able to move the ball and score like at a wicked pace. That's really promising. I think that Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, their OC, who doesn't get talked up enough, they're doing a really, really good job with this offense, and the defense is going to continue to be a problem. And they play indoors, and I think it's going to continue to be like sort of like a fantasy bonanza here.
Every time I start looking to next week, the first thing that I do is see who the Lions are playing. And I was like, oh boy, who are the Lions playing this week? They're playing the Vikings this week in Minnesota. That's going to be obviously one we'll talk about a ton on.
They're going to be an over team, I think, all year.
Green Bay. So Aaron Jones blows up, and I thought the way he was used was better. In other words, he wasn't really used as a decoy as much. He was out there actually getting the football. But I should note that in this game on Sunday night, he had 40 snaps. A.J. Dillon had 39 snaps. Aaron Jones had 15 carries. A.J. Dillon had 18. Aaron Jones had 3 targets. A.J. Dillon had 3 targets. So although Aaron Jones went off for like 35 fantasy points, the usage was not that different than it was on week 1. Basically the same as with the same split with A.J. Dillon. What did you see out of the Packers game?
Well, I think that this is the way that Aaron Rodgers believes that the Packers offense should be constructed. It should be run through Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And, you just look at the box score. Nobody nobody on the team got more than 4 targets. Sammy Watkins, who, by the way, ripped a nice 55-yarder. He's back above Zay Jones. Take that, Norris. He was the team target leader here. 4 targets for Sammy Watkins led the team. But you remember the way that Aaron Rodgers was talking about the offense, and I agree with him. I think that Aaron Jones and probably A.J. Dillon are probably the Packers' 2 best skill position, non-quarterback skill position players, and the offense should run through them. And that's what we saw against the Bears. And I kind of expect it to continue. The first game with Aaron Jones getting 8 touches was alarming, but they immediately Matt LaFleur came out after the game. He was like, we're not going to win if we only get Aaron Jones the ball 8 times. They come out, they make the adjustment. I'm optimistic that it's going to stay this way going forward.
Okay. They have to play the Bucs this week. Certainly a tough matchup. And by the way, we'll get to the Bucs in a minute. They're playing a much different brand of football right now, and it's not really conducive to high-scoring games at all, as we saw in their game against the Saints. We'll get to that in a little bit there, but just wanted to note that as Green Bay plays Tampa Bay this week. Rams. So hopefully you guys read Top Plays. You were in the Discord for the Darrell Henderson information. Cam Akers was back, and maybe it was a mistake by us to overreact to week 1 when Darrell Henderson was so far ahead of Cam Akers. Because in week 2, we got the information, and then the information was good. Cam Akers played 27 snaps. Darrell Henderson played 35. Cam Akers outcarried Darrell Henderson 15-10. Now, Darrell Henderson was still the pass down back, still ran a ton of routes. He was fine, and he got the short touchdown also. But it looks like the most likely thing is a split here, and they just didn't want to give up on Cam Akers despite what happened in week 1. Rams almost blew this game, but what do you see out of the Rams win over the Falcons?
Yeah, and again, as we talked about last week, like the Rams just know that Darrell Henderson cannot be a true workhorse. So, and it does seem to me, or I think that it's been true throughout Sean McVay's tenure there, that he prefers a one-back offense. But I think that he realizes that he can't do that because he can't give it all to Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers still, it's not like he's playing well. But they just realize that they can't give it all to Darrell Henderson. So Akers is going to continue to get opportunities. Allen Robinson, I think that our analysis was pretty good on him. He came back. He almost scored 2 touchdowns. One was whistle, like they blew a whistle or something right
ridiculous.
before.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He almost had 2 touchdowns. He should have had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
This was a guy that was lighting it up in training camp. I mean, absolutely lighting it up. Everything went wrong for him that could have went wrong in that first game. They get him more involved. I mean, he's going to have to be involved. They don't have pass catcher depth, man. They're trying out Ben Skoranek for like significant snaps. Higbee's still getting a lot of targets. I think you can start Higbee as like a low end tight end 1. Cooper Kupp, of course, balling out.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp has now played 23 games with Matthew Stafford. He's gone over 90 receiving yards in 21 of them. I mean, it's just like what Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford doing is absolutely insane. Everybody knows it's coming, and they still can't stop it. Minnesota last night in the Monday night game, I thought it was a good sign for Irv Smith. Irv Smith was really limited in week 1 as he was coming out of that finger issue. Week 2 was better. He played 56% of the snaps. He was in a route 60% of the time, 8 targets for 17% share, 536-1. Could have certainly been more. So that was a good sign. But man, the Vikings got wrecked by this very, very good Eagles team. What do you see out of Irv or anything else with the Vikings last night?
Yeah, and Dalvin Cook got killed by game script. Kirk Cousins did not play well. Justin Jefferson didn't play well. Troy Aikman noted that there was one of Kirk Cousins' 3 interceptions was actually on Justin Jefferson. Obviously, I still think that Justin Jefferson is going to have a great season, but through 2 weeks, feeling pretty good about sticking with Cooper Kupp, ranked ahead of Justin Jefferson. I agree with you that the Irv Smith usage was promising. He almost had a touchdown, dropped it. That's about all I got here. Adam Thielen was totally non-existent until late in the game.
Yeah, until garbage time. Yeah. I mean, age model strikes again on Adam Thielen. I thought Darius Slay played a great game, by the way. I mean, not everybody's gonna be able to do what Darius Slay was able to do to Justin Jefferson. I mean, Darius Slay was balling.
But that's another thing to note, though, is that Justin Jefferson is not playing in the slot as much as was kind of talked up. So when he plays on the perimeter more, Darius Slay is gonna catch him. He's not quite playing in the slot as much as we anticipated.
Go to the Saints. So Alvin Kamara ended up sitting in this game, as expected against that Bucs front. Mark Ingram and Tony Jones struggled a bit. The Chris Olave role is really good, man. I mean, 21% target share. He's playing a ton. He had this outrageous, like 365 air yards in week 2.
What? I've never seen that many air yards.
it's so ridiculous. So I think it's coming for Chris Olave as long as Jameis can sustain health. Now, the report came out from Jay Glazer Sunday morning. Jameis is dealing with 4 fractures in his back. I don't think that's going to affect him, although in the back of my head, I'm like, how can it not affect him? Any thoughts on that? Anything else you saw from New Orleans game against the Bucs?
Yeah, shoot. That report came out on Sunday. We kind of downplayed it a little bit, and I feel like we maybe shouldn't have downplayed it as much because Jameis did not play well in this game. It looked like old Jameis. And in the first game, I thought he played really well. Michael Thomas has had 2 really solid weeks. Juwan Johnson is available in a number of my FFPC main events. Go get him. I mean, he's locked in, I think, as the Saints pass catching tight end.
Yeah,
he had 7 targets in this game, 4 for 40. Like, that's startable.
He has a 16% target share on the season, which is really good for a tight end. And he's running around on 75% of Jameis dropbacks. And he's a former wide receiver. I mean, Juwan Johnson obviously checks a lot of boxes. It's going to be bumpy, but yeah, I think he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, he should definitely be owned in the tight end premium leagues.
Yeah. Let's go to the Giants. I mean, this wide receiver stuff is getting laughable now with the Giants. They essentially benched Kenny Golladay. He runs 2 routes. I haven't heard what's happened since then. I thought I saw when the reporters got into the locker room, Kenny Galladay's locker was already cleaned out. I mean, I assume this is going to come to a head real soon, but obviously they've seen enough of Kenny Golladay. They don't want to play him. Kadarius Toney got back in the mix a little bit more, 15 routes. But even with Wan'Dale injured, Toney only 15 routes. David Sills led the team with 40 routes. Sterling Shepard, 39. Richie James, 26. That's on 43. Daniel Jones, dropbacks. Richie James and Sterling Shepard can play, man. Like, maybe you can win with those guys. Sterling Shepard made this impressive recovery from the Achilles, but I still think that Kadarius Toney has to be a hold, especially with Galladay. I'm giving up on Galladay now. It's like Kadarius Toney has to get in there. He needs a full week of practice. He needs to get his head in the playbook. But I mean, and if one Dale stays injured, I mean, they have to start playing Toney soon. So he's an ad for me if he got dropped, and he's a hold. What do you see out of the Giants? Our 2-0 New York Giants, maybe the worst 2-0 team in the history of the NFL, but go ahead, 2-0 New York Giants.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a total mess here in the pass catcher core. Saquon Barkley didn't have a big game this week, but the usage is absolutely there. He's going to have a bunch of big games this year as long as he stays healthy. I don't think that there's a whole lot of analysis that we need to do beyond that.
Yeah. Eagles. I mean, I've seen some. We have the hopefully you guys listened to the award show back in the summer that we did, and some of the other shows that we did in the summer. You have the 40-1, the 50-1 on Jalen Hurts to be MVP because it's down to 8-1 now. They have this
wow,
outrageously soft schedule. I mean, I was looking at their rest of season schedule. It's crazy. I mean, they're favored in almost every game. And the ones they're not favored in, I definitely think they could be favored in by the time the game actually comes around. I mean, for fantasy, Jalen Hurts might be the legit MVP considering where he was going in the 8th round or so. He's now made 21 NFL starts. He's averaging 10 carries per game for 57 yards and 0.76 touchdowns. Just absolutely ridiculous. And now you can see, if you watch that game last night, it was so obvious that he's improved as a thrower. I mean, so obvious that he's much better as a thrower. And obviously getting A.J. Brown helps. But I thought Devonta Smith bounced back and had a good game. A.J. was fine. Dallas Goedert was fine. It's just, they're going to be good, man. And Jalen Hurts is going to be one of fantasy's best quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
All year. What do you see out of the Eagles' easy win over the Vikings last night?
Yeah, I think he's got a chance to rush for 1,000 yards, I mean, I think that's very much in play here. Their offensive line is just beating ass. And, knock on wood, because I feel like they lose like the Eagles lose like 3 offensive linemen every year to injury. But so far, so good. Miles Sanders back up 20 touches in this game. I think he had 15 in the first game. So he's up to 35 touches through 2 games. He's getting consistent usage, even while they're still mixing in Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. So you like to see that. Yeah, I mean, this team looks like they're going to win a ton of games this year.
Yeah, so many. Yeah, Miles Sanders this season, 77 snaps, 35 opportunities. Well ahead of Kenny Gainwell, 51 snaps, 13 opportunities. Boston Scott, 29 snaps, 9 opportunities. I mean, Miles Sanders, when they were trying to salt the game away, it was Miles Sanders doing so and thought he played a really good game. And yeah, his role is fine. Yeah, it's a 3-way backfield, but his role is fine. And on these 0 RB teams, man, like Darrell Henderson, Miles Sanders, CEH, even guys like Hines, there's been a bunch of hits already for the 0 RB stuff, and the wide receivers at the top are just absolutely crushing. So
yeah, it's definitely looking so far. Yeah,
those hero RB and 0 RB teams are looking really, really good.
Yeah.
Seahawks. Kenneth Walker made his NFL debut after the hernia surgery or whatever he had, and that turned the early downs into a timeshare. I mean, Rashad Penny led the team in running back carries, but he only got 50% of the running back carries. And then they bring in Travis Homer to play all the pass downs, and he leads the team in snaps. I mean, what a mess this backfield is. They used a 1st-round pick on Rashad Penny, a 2nd-round pick on Kenneth Walker, and they still don't have their pass downs covered. Travis Homer has to come in on the pass downs. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous what the Seahawks have done. And as expected, they came back to earth. I mean, they were lucky to even score in that game at San Francisco. What do you see out of Geno and the guys in their loss to the 49ers?
Yeah, I mean, the Tyler Lockett best ball drafters, they got a nice little game there. But man, this is an offense just to completely avoid, and we anticipated this. I mean, we expected this. They don't run plays. They run the ball when they do have the ball, and they're inefficient. And now they have, really like a 3-way backfield, or even there was one play where they had 4 running backs on the backfield at the same time in week 2. It's like they're fucking with us. I mean, they're like rubbing it in our face. There are 4 running backs on the field at the same time. And then DJ Dallas threw an interception. But for real, all right, it's a 2-man backfield on a team that doesn't run plays.
3-man backfield. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had a question on the Sunday morning show. Hey, Rashad Penny, could he be a GPP option? No. He can't. I mean, he ain't gonna get the ball enough.
Let's go to. Oh, and by the way, like Gino's completion percentage looks pretty good, but man, I mean, better than I thought it would be. But it's just so short. I mean, his yards per attempt is so low, and like they've turned DK Metcalf into like an underneath like possession receiver. It's just what a mess. All right, San Francisco, biggest injury of the week. Unfortunately, Trey Lance is going to miss the rest of this season after undergoing surgery to repair a broken ankle. You know, I was excited to see what Trey Lance could do. I didn't think that we could take a lot away from week one. I was honestly a little bit scared, you know, and I thought there was a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo would get in anyways, but I wanted to at least see Trey Lance get a chance. And now we don't get to know, and it sucks for Trey Lance. But now San Francisco looks like the King Sharps because they retained Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you think the fallout is from the Trey Lance injury? Who benefits on San Francisco from Jimmy Garoppolo getting back in the saddle?
I think that you can make an argument that the seas are sort of parting for Deebo Samuel here. I mean, Deebo Samuel is the guy that, you know, had all the success with Jimmy G last year. The running backs are already dropping like flies. Tyrion Davis-Price suffered a high ankle sprain. We've been over those over and over and over again, right? We do not like to bet on guys with high ankle sprains. Jordan Mason now looks like a super sharp pickup. Last week, you should have picked him up last week, as we discussed. But yeah, I think that this one hurt because I had a nice early slate. I ran one lineup, and I had a nice early slate, and then I pivoted off. But I pivoted off of Kyler to Trey Lance, and I got in Deebo, and I also had James Conner on the late slate, and just all went to crap. But the subscribers had a good week, and that's what matters most. This is for the people. That's what I always tell myself when that happens, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's pretty much all I got on San Francisco. Yeah. I think that it sounds like George Kittle is going to be back this week. I think it sounds that way, but we'll see on Wednesday.
Yeah, George Kittle seemed like he was truly questionable for week 2, so hopefully he'll be back for week 3. That'll certainly be a boost to Jimmy Garoppolo and the team in general. I think they'll be a little bit more throw heavy with Jimmy G in the saddle. And you don't take away, like when you're doing a projection, you don't take away 9, 10, 11 runs from the running backs or from Deebo for Trey Lance because Jimmy Garoppolo isn't scrambling at all. So there's just more carries to go around. As Evan said, Tyrion Davis-Price is out. We know Eli Mitchell is out. I mean, Deebo in close games is going to get 6, 7, 8 carries in those close games. And obviously he has Jimmy Garoppolo throwing him the ball right now, which I think is a little bit more accurate than Trey Lance was. So yeah, certainly an upgrade for Deebo. And I think it can't really hurt Ayuk. And if anybody's giving up on Kittle out there, I'd be trading for Kittle. I mean, he hasn't even played. He's been hurt. But if anybody wants to give up on George Kittle, I'm certainly a buyer on George Kittle with Jimmy Garoppolo getting back in there for sure. Bucks. Okay, so I wanted to mention this. One of the reasons that I was like a little bit queasy on Leonard Fournette Sunday, week 2, this offensive line situation is bad. I mean, Thorne was texting me. He dropped him a ton in the rankings. He added a mismatch. I mean, no Donovan Smith. I mean, their offensive line is absolutely decimated. And then they also don't have Chris Godwin and Julio Jones. And then Mike Evans gets thrown out in the game for punching his rival or fighting with his rival, Marshawn Lattimore. And so the once extremely efficient offense of the Bucs, I have major concerns that's going to be inefficient going forward, especially if you think Tom Brady at age 45 is taking a step back. Not that he's bad now, but he's allowed to just take a little bit of a step back. And so I have major concerns about this offense until they get their wide receivers healthy, until they get some offensive linemen back healthy. Because for now, I mean, they're a negative pass rate over expectation team. They're a run-centric team. Leonard Fournette had 58 snaps. He was the focal point of the game. Rashad White, only 9 snaps. Gio, 0. Keyshawn, inactive. So it's good for Leonard Fournette from a volume perspective. Efficiency, I have major concerns about with Tampa. What do you see out of their win over the Saints?
Yeah, and I don't even think that Tom Brady is startable right now, beyond like 2 quarterback leagues. I mean, and he's not even a good start there.
Especially without Mike Evans, yeah.
Especially without Mike Evans. Mike Evans, we're recording this early afternoon on Tuesday. He's going to appeal his suspension tonight. But the guy who's deciding that works for the league, James Thrash, famous of Stinkston and Trash.
Yeah.
He actually oversaw his suspension in 2017 when he just decked Marshawn Lattimore. God, these guys hate each other.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Evans hates Marshawn Lattimore. we know that. But so and Mike Evans appealed that original suspension. under Thrash, and Thrash was like, no. And now he's got a history of doing it. Like he ain't going to win this appeal.
No. The suspension is almost certainly going to stand, I would think.
And Rachaad White is like one of the best handcuffs in all of fantasy right now.
Oh, yeah.
He absolutely has. I understand he's not putting stuff in the box score right now, but he is in prime position if something happens to Len to take over as the Bucks feature back.
By the way, the Bucks signed Cole Beasley to their practice squad. We'll see if he gets up. But I think the ad here, my preferred ad, assuming Julio and Godwin and Evans are all out, I think my preferred ad is Brashad Perriman. I don't know if you have a take on Perriman versus Scotty Miller or any of these other dust balls, but at least Brashad Perriman goes deep and can run. That's about the best I can say for him. Any thoughts on ads for the people on the Bucks wide receivers?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I would go with Perriman. Miller saw 8 targets last week, but Russell Gage has been a huge disappointment, I think.
Yeah. And saw Ryan's waiver wire column for more there, but my instinct is Perriman. Okay. Last one we're going to do here today is the Washington football team. I didn't think Curtis Samuel was a fluke, but he confirmed that it was not a fluke. I mean, he's playing 80% of the snaps. He's their every down slot guy. He's seen a 23% target share plus some carries. Let's not forget, Curtis Samuel was a former first-round pick. I mean, Duke can play. The only reason we haven't heard about him in a long time, he's basically been injured for like 2 years straight. But now he looks really healthy, and Washington is throwing the crap out of the ball. Now, they've had a couple of matchups where it made sense for them to throw the ball a ton. I don't know if they'll keep doing that going forward, but for now, Curtis Samuel is a pretty high floor play every week. What did you see out of the football team's loss to our Lions?
I had to fact check you there on Curtis Samuel. 40th overall pick. Oh, okay. Very close to first round. Very close. It's a problem for Terry McLaurin right now. And McLaurin has been surviving he had sort of like, I think it was a late game touchdown in week 1. And then this past week he had 4 for 75, 8 targets. He's been surviving, but I think it's a big problem for him right now. He's not going to be the ceiling play that he theoretically could be. Carson Wentz has been putting up a bunch of stats. He's also throwing a bunch of picks and taking a bunch of sacks. He's 4th in interceptions in the league and 8th in sacks taken. I don't know. Do you think that he can keep it up? I mean, they've got an interesting 3-receiver set, and I can't believe how well Logan Thomas has come back from that brutal injury. But Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and Terry McLaurin, like, these dudes are fast. They've got a lot of speed on their offense. I mean, Antonio Gibson too.
I mean, they've played the Jaguars and the Lions so far. So I don't want to go overboard on it. Certainly 2 spots where you want to be throwing, you have to be throwing a lot. They play the Eagles, Cowboys, Titans, Bears next. Obviously, there'll be some slower games in there, but it looks like they're willing, at least. They're definitely willing to let Carson Wentz throw the ball and throw it a ton, and that's encouraging going forward for all these guys, regardless of matchup. All right. That's going to do it for this NFC Team by Team podcast. We'll be back next episode for the AFC Team by Team podcast. Be sure you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this so you don't miss any of these podcasts going forward. For Evan, for producer Luke, I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.